living a Hermetic lifestyle and the Lineage of King Solomon, of which I'm a spiritual guide in, that it is the practice of a path, of living and breathing a Hermetic path. And the daily rituals that you are handed down if you choose to become an initiate and an adept in this lineage are practices that you could do every day and that are meant to be built upon, so that everyone has the capability to grow, learn, and progress, as we say. And so my whole job as a guide is really to do what we call to teach people how to fish, so to speak. I don't want people to be dependent on me. Here are the tools so you too can become a master, and please even surpass me. That would, because everyone is capable. Just like Jesus said, everything I can do, you can do and more. And as a master of light, that is truly his role here, was to teach us that we could actually be such level of healer, such level of manifester, such a compassionate force of love in this universe.
What if you were the living embodiment of all pervasive peace? What if all sentient beings all around you increase their vibration towards harmony by merely being in your contact? What if, through conscious reasoning, focused will, and intentional living, you reform yourself, thereby becoming a catalyst and sparking transformation in others? I'm Shilpa Lewis, meditation, mindset, and mindfulness coach for midlife mompreneurs, and you are listening to Omnipresent Awareness, the podcast that will inspire you to use your story to serve humanity, and not just healing, but thriving as souls, each fulfilling their highest purpose. Namaste. Thanks for tuning in to Omnipresent Awareness. This is your host, Shilpa Lewis, and welcome back. Okay, so I'm running a little challenge as I'm trying to get more people to discover this podcast and the conversations that inspire those who value personal growth. And the best way to do that is to leave reviews. You can leave a review on Spotify, Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast. So here's a little request from me to you. If you feel like you have received any value at all from these episodes, then please write a little review and take a screenshot of your review. Once you've done that, email that screenshot to me at omnimindfulness@gmail.com. Once I get your screenshot, you will receive one of my infographics. Spark your meditation practice through Sankalpa. Sankalpa is the Sanskrit word for intention setting. Along with this, you'll receive a link to my guided meditation where you can daily practice intention setting with some inspirational music and breath work. This infographic, along with the guided meditation, is guaranteed to have you start your practice for meditation with a spark. It is my gift for you for being a listener, being a supporter, and of course for you to be able to manifest the best meditation practice. So thank you for showing up, listening, and being inspired, and most importantly, taking action. I appreciate you. So again, please don't forget to take a screenshot of your review and send it to omnimindfulness@gmail.com, and I will send you that infographic and the link to the guided meditation. We are now in the season of Seeds of Abundance, which is our third podcast season honoring spring, new mindsets, and abundance. This season will cover mindful money mindset, movement and healing, law of attraction, and embracing the feminine energy. Up next, Angel Latterell. Angel has defined herself professionally as an attorney and project manager, having earned a degree in philosophy, classical history, and law. Angel's love of language has also led her to become a poet, writer, and playwright. With a zeal for cooking and travel, she's traveled the world in search of new cuisines while finding time to cook and write from her very own kitchen. Aside from all of this, Angel discovered that she has a keen desire for spiritual learning and growth. What separates her from most attorneys is that she approaches her professional work as well as personal life from a spiritual perspective. She is a practitioner of the Hermetic Path and trained in the Lineage of King Solomon, which is part of her lifestyle. Angel is a Certified Life Activation Practitioner, Max Meditation Facilitator, Crystal Healer, Empowerment Coach, practicing Buddhist, and a mystic reader of the runes and tarots. As an attorney, she has dedicated her life to helping people create outcomes they desire. As a healer, she dedicates her time to providing methods for alchemical transformation. And as a guide, she gives her clients the opportunity to choose freedom by providing the light to a path. Angel believes attracting a life you want and purpose is possible. Her mission is to change the world to be a better place where there is love and abundance for all. She believes manifesting such a life starts with you choosing a different way for your life. And now, here's Angel. Welcome, Angel. How are you?
I am well, thank you so much.
This month I'm talking about law of attraction, and you were one of the first people who came to mind. So perhaps just for the audience, share what you do and how that plays into law of attraction.
Yeah, so I'm an attorney and a spiritual guide, and in both of my practices, I call it an abundance approach or an abundance mindset to life. So we look at both through spiritual practices, how do we create the life we want to manifest using tools and techniques and the laws of hermetics. And then through my legal practice, we're using the containers that the law gives us, to create places that literally we can manifest what we want for our businesses and for our lives through the tools of estate planning.
Wonderful. And for those who may not be aware, maybe share your take on what law of attraction means, not only personally, but professionally.
Absolutely. So, there's quite a bit out there of what the law of attraction is, but for me personally, when I think about it, so our mindset and our perspective on one, how we value ourselves and where we're at in our lives, and what we have gratitude for in our immediate environment. So that first step is just our observation of ourselves and our life. And it starts there because if we're observing a reality that's filled with abundant choice, abundant things to be grateful for, even if we don't have what's traditionally looked at as abundant wealth, for example, but we might realize we have a wealth of resources. And if we can see that in our life, live that, have gratitude and for what we're seeing, then that attitude will then attract more things that are good for us and desirable for us, that lead us towards our passion and our joy, that only then replicate and create more abundance of those things that we like. The other way that it works in life is that the law of attraction goes both ways. Like attracts like. So if in our lives we are observing and experiencing joy and passion and gratitude for all the things that are around us, we're going to attract more things of that similar vibration. So that's what abundance mindset, with that gratitude mindset as its foundation, creates the law of attraction to bring in more abundance of well, it can bring in good and bad abundance, honestly, but like attracts like. So if you're experiencing negativity and an extreme amount of lack or feelings of a victim or other frustrations and anxiety, you're going to bring in more things that are of that same wavelength into your life and be more aware of those things. So part of the law of attraction is the practice of getting very aware and discerning and observing our environment, our lives, our inner thoughts, so that we are of the right, I hate to use the right, but of the frequency we want to be attractive of, I think would be a better way of putting it than being of the right mindset. Right?
Yeah, I think the right is more subjective, but when you talk about thoughts and vibrations, that truly resonates with the way I think about spirituality and approaching things. I mean, not only your attitude, your behavior, but they're all vibrating at a certain frequency. And yeah, and sometimes, you know, they say like your environment attracts what you're thinking, or you are attracting that environment. And over time, if you lose sense of awareness, like you were saying, being conscientious of what's around you, it might either put you in a place of negativity or positivity.
Absolutely, because we're intentionally creating all the time. However, a lot of folks haven't learned that yet. So it's like we have to be observant and realize that we're actually intentionally creating, even if we're unintentionally created. No matter what we're doing, we're always creating. So it is the practice of observing our thoughts and our minds such that we can choose what we are in fact thinking as our basis, because all is mind to begin with. And so that which we think, we create. And so why not think our way into the things we want to manifest in our environment versus feeling put upon by our environment.
And that word intention seems to be so pivotal in this conversation, because I start each morning literally writing down, what is my intention for today? And it could be something as simple as, like a weekend ago, I said, my intention for today is to be full of vitality. And I'm telling you, I was full of vitality. I mean, I had to make the effort. I worked out, and I consumed something that gave me vitality. I worked out, but I was full of vitality, but that started with the intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And my daily practice is something similar, that every day you wake up and I do a set of what we call rituals, ancient rituals, but in those you customize to set your intention for the day and the energies you want to bring in and focus on specifically based on what's going on with the day. And by doing these rituals every day, you get more discernment, more ability to recognize that by setting those intentions, you are actually shaping your day and ultimately your long-term reality. And then it feeds upon itself, because also by setting those intentions and giving yourself that space in the morning and again in the evening before we sleep, it begins to grow and strengthen in some ways those spiritual muscles, so that we can set a new norm, new foundation to build on each and every day.
Absolutely. I also feel those rituals although they may seem very structured, that structure is what really helps keep you stronger.
Right. Yeah. Just like any physical exercise regimen, right? Like we can't run a marathon if we've never walked a block, right? So we have to build on those things. And it's the same with our spiritual muscles.
Absolutely.
The more we use them, the more we realize they're there, the stronger they get. And the more we're able to habitually, intentionally use them.
The word manifestation comes up a lot in conversations when the topic of law of attraction comes up. Do you think of them as synonymous, or what kind of rituals do you feel like one can put into practice to manifest?
They're related, manifestation and the law of attraction. They're two different things. We're getting at the law of attraction itself, I think, is more of recognizing the vibratory energy, the like attracts like, and that our thoughts create our reality aspect. and living that. So it's in the mindset and the way of being, whereas manifestation is the actual creating of something from nothing, or bringing more of the somethings, or creating, making something into something else in our lives. So we somehow have to combine the four elements to create, just like the magician tarot card has the four elements, and thus they are the master of their life in that archetype. So manifestation is how do we, the art of bringing into being those things we want or don't want in our lives, but as we are always manifesting. But the act of manifesting intentionally is really the art of bringing into being that which we want to have actually be in this physical environment with us.
And when you guide your clients, do you suggest any of these rituals so that they can lead a life that's intentionally attracting what they need or want?
Oh, absolutely. The whole science of living a Hermetic lifestyle and the Lineage of King Solomon, of which I'm a spiritual guide in, that it is the practice of a path of living and breathing a Hermetic path. And the daily rituals that you are handed down if you choose to become an initiate and an adept in this lineage are practices that you could do every day, and that are meant to be built upon, so that everyone has the capability to grow, learn, and progress, as we say. And so my whole job as a guide is really to do what we call to teach people how to fish, so to speak. I don't want people to be dependent on me. Here are the tools so you too can become a master, and please even surpass me. That would, because everyone is capable. Just like Jesus said, everything I can do, you can do and more. And as a master of light, that is truly his role here, was to teach us that we could actually be such level of healer, such level of manifester, such a compassionate force of love in this universe.
That is so interesting that you mentioned that you encourage your clients to surpass, meaning that here are the tools. And that's why I feel like often, even as a meditation coach or a life coach, my goal is to really give the tools so that each one of us is autonomous and growing and doing those things that, like you said, you've been passed on through a lineage. And I'm always fascinated. Tell me a little more about King Solomon, Hermetics, and how that all ties in with your practice professionally.
Yeah, so the lineage of King Solomon is over 8,000 years old. It bears King Solomon's name because around 3,000-ish years ago, he brought all of the healers, seers, oracles, teachers of the planet together to study for over 30 years. For him, it was the purpose to not only gather all of the esoteric knowledge that was available on the planet that day, but how do we actually create a science for a human being to access their highest self and live at that highest level of human being possibility. The Adam Kadmon is the term of art that he used to say that highest human potential. And how do we literally turn it on and actualize it so that we can create, the idea is to bring back the garden, bring in Shambhala, whatever words you want to say, but where we're in a place where every human being is fully actualized, doing what we're meant to have done on this planet, which was recognize our divine spark, our ability to be creator gods and goddesses. And so he brought these people together, and they worked for 30 years. And they came up with a system of activations and healings that will work on any human being, regardless of culture, biology, background. Just like a clinical trial in some ways, these have been practiced the same way in an unbroken lineage for over 3,000 years now. And, it shows that every person who engages with it, who chooses to walk this path, their benefits may be unique to them, but they are receiving benefit and moving forward in their life to live their purpose as the unique God being that they're meant to be, really having joy and passion and love and expressing that. So the Lineage of King Solomon as exists today holds his name because we have those tools are still just as they learned how to do them that many years ago, been handed down through oral tradition. And then how we teach, although a little updated for modern ability, but we still teach in person. Like if you're going to receive the Empower Thyself class teachings and initiation, you're going to do that in person with a guide that's trained to be able to hand down the daily rituals that people are going to learn and practice, and the teachings that go along with it to support that, so you can understand, oh, where did we, what is one very different approach to why are human beings here today, and what is this hierarchy of light that makes up the structure of the universe, and how do we kind of create through thought, idea, thought, plan, action, and all of that kind of knowledge that goes along with that as a and so yeah, when you step onto this path, it's a very structured, guided path. And it's a Hermetic lineage in that we follow the principles of the 7 Hermetic principles and other teachings that come from Hermes Trismegistus, who may have been Thoth from the Egyptian, may have come from Atlantis. There's all, may have just been a really cool Greek guy that wrote a bunch of stuff down, but it's, we don't know. So
it's the concept is connected to King Solomon. I find it so fascinating that at a time before technology was even prevalent, communication was the biggest challenge with humans. Yet to bring all of these sources together is just ahead of his time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and part of the technologies of this kind of spiritual practice and esoteric practices, you can, if you're a very like, he didn't need to use a telephone because he was probably extremely good at astral travel and being able to communicate on the astral plane with others. So like, to join any mystery school today, with the exception of the Modern Mystery School International, which is open to the public, they actually have, I'm just, like you would receive the equivalent of a Hogwarts owl, because there's somebody sitting there meditating and just knows that this person is ready for an invitation into this particular mystery school. Luckily, the Modern Mystery School is open to the public, so we don't need to wait for a Hogwarts owl and some guy to reach us on the astral plane to say, hey, we're coming, knock, knock, knock. But, when you think about King Solomon, I'm sure, like, yeah, there wasn't, there was maybe messenger pigeons of some form, but there wasn't mass communication. So how did he bring all of those people together? And, they had to work for that long because it probably took years for some of them to get there from wherever their retinues came.
That is so fascinating. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about this topic. I may in the future do that because I'm always fascinated. In how you've been guiding people, maybe you can share like an example of a transformation you've seen where someone may have needed to get through something and they put into practice, maybe yourself or someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually just recently I had a client who they met myself and my partner, who we were at just a metaphysical fair. And actually my partner he's a talented tarot reader, but this is actually the first time he had been in a fair kind of setting, doing readings and actually having, exchanging dollars for doing readings. And this lovely individual came up actually attracted to his energy. And then of course they had a lovely reading, and then he's like, oh, like her husband had just recently died and she was really grappling with that difficulty. And so my partner, he said, well, Angel's a phenomenal healer. She might have some things that can help you overcome the grief and other things you've been struggling with in the wake of losing your husband. And, we chatted, and at the fair, I did a little session with her, but got her to actually that day, just because she liked my energy, but also what she was truly seeking, which is like, how do I find a way to energetically, move on? She had spent most of her adult life in this relationship with her husband, who is now, because of illness, taken away, but she needs to live her life now. And you know, instead of being focused on the grief, but, you know, obviously allowing herself to feel that, she wanted, like, what is a way I can access my next stage of life and start living my life for me? And I told her about the Empower Thyself class and initiation and life activation. She's like, yep, sign me up. So she put her deposit down just that day, and then came in for her life activation. About a month later, we were able to schedule it. And then she did the Empower Thyself class and initiation 2 months later. But in between her life activation and coming into Empower Thyself, she completely quit drinking. She started meditating every day. Her whole look, like everything, she went from, you know, being, you could tell she was sad, to being shiny, and like there was a vitality to her that hadn't been there before. And she told me, she's like, my whole life has changed, both my attitude and my approach, just from the life activation, which is one of those modalities that King Solomon and crew came up with 3,000 years ago in that 30-year process. That was actually the first and foremost, most fundamental thing that helps us transform, because it actually works on a DNA level to expand your DNA to be able to make space for your purpose and access your more divine self. And her whole vibration shifted, thus beginning to attract things, and her being able to see things in her life and see a path for her to become a healer and help others. And for her to start finding just her voice, like, what is me living my life? Not that her relationship when her husband was alive was bad, but she was living a life in some ways in that partnership for him, because he had a serious illness for a long time and things like that. So this transformation was like, now she's living her life. And then with the Empower Thyself initiation, she just even like broke open to this whole other being. Like, the amount of power that came in for her immediately was, I could just see the transformation in front of me. And now she's just really leaning into doing the daily practices and, you know, finding a way forward for herself that, in her own words, is not effort. It's a joy on a daily path of taking these steps, and how wonderful it is to have a method that she can just do every day that then opens up all of this access to potential that wasn't there before.
That is wonderful. And it sounds like she's in flow, because she wasn't working against something, it was working with the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a true transformation before my eyes, just on both a vibratory level, as well as like just seeing her, and then how she's able to see and live her life now in a different light completely.
That is wonderful. Now, let's say there are women like myself, we often are juggling and overwhelmed, you know, as a mom or midlife and having a career and transitioning. There's just so much to it. Any tips or insights you have for women who are truly attuned, like myself, maybe, who attuned to the idea of manifestation, law of attraction, but need some guidance or tips on, like, how do I put this into practice?
The best way to start any practice or continue with the practice is to not think about it being like, you have to eat the elephant in small bites. Like, you can't eat the whole elephant in one bite, right? So a lot of people get stopped by is, well, I'm here and I want to be there, but they think they got to jump over the entire space in one step. And with any practice, it's literally a practice. To be perfect is simply to continue and to not stop. So with any practice is, you know, I when I say start small, it's like, don't mean you can't reach great heights, but every day just take a step. Every day take a step. So if meditation is difficult for you, start with 5 minutes a day so that you build that muscle, and then you can fit 5 minutes a day into your busy schedule. If you're a mom and you're working, like, when do you have, like, so that 5 minutes might be the precious 5 minutes you have, but that's 5 minutes you have. Like, So, and maybe the first step is, where can I fit this practice in? Or maybe not being attached to it having to be at the same time every day, but I have these moments of downtime. Let me use that downtime instead for something that's self-care versus something else, like our distraction, right? So trade out the social media for 5 minutes of meditation, or doing some affirmation practices. The founder of the Modern Mystery School, Gudni Gunderson, starts his day every day by looking in the mirror and telling himself that he loves himself. Like, I love you, I love my hair, I love my butt. Like, he'll go through parts of his body and say how he loves that. So it might feel really cheesy at first, but it's something as simple as telling yourself that you love you is a great way to do a practice. So start with something you can do and that you will repeat. And when my students ask me, when's the best time to do my rituals? And I was like, well, on paper, I say every morning and evening, but when you will do them is the most important time and the best time to do them, right? If it's after you brush your teeth or before you brush your teeth, but do them like when you will.
That's so true. Like, I sometimes get caught up with, oh, I didn't do it at 6:30 in the morning. Oh, the day is going to slip by. But now what I've changed my attitude is, okay, it'll be later, early afternoon when I get to the meditation. It'll get done, or I'll hop on the bike and go for a quick spin.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, a practice is simply the act of doing it every day. And discipline is the repetition of doing it every day. And yes, you can be very strictly disciplined and say, I have to be at, these particular times. But if that discipline stops you from doing it, then that's counterproductive. So be kind to yourself and just allow your, commit to doing it and do it when it works for you. And if it's a little bit, then have gratitude that you were able to do the little bit, but you did something and you continued that day.
That is wonderful. One of my favorite quotes is, keep on keeping on. You just keep pressing,
Yeah. Yeah. My, one of my Buddhist mentors, Daisaku Ikeda, once said something about, because we do this practice of chanting what we call daimoku, which is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo over and over again. And he said, as long as you put your best effort into the amount of time you have to do it, it's just as valuable as if you spend hours doing it and worrying about other things. So, if you can be focused and present wherever you're choosing to take that practice, is going to have as much value as the length of time, because if you're fretting for 2 hours about doing it, it's like, no, just take 2 minutes and do it. And spare yourself the 2 hours of fretting or beating yourself up because you didn't do it at the right time. So
that's so true. And that alone, that practice, by being present, by being focused, which it's a practice for me daily. I'm like, okay, it's not a half-hour practice, it's a 5-minute practice today, but I'm so present and I'm allowing myself to feel the value. But that alone can create that attraction. And
absolutely,
tying it back to law of attraction, it's like you are then attracting that level of vibration because you've given yourself that peace.
Mm-hmm. And similarly, our thoughts create, right, that law of attraction. So if our practice has become to worry about that we're not practicing right, then we're attracting the negative vibration in as opposed to the positive. So, part of our discipline with thought intention is to simply make the commitment, do it where we have the time, and then we'll learn to find and create more time as we practice more. Yeah. But allowing ourselves at first, especially when we're starting out, to just do what we can when we can.
Absolutely. Do what you can, and being present in those few minutes or moments you have. Mm-hmm. And just to come full circle about law of attraction, sounds like the focus of our conversation has really been around thoughts and how thoughts play such a strong role on how we attract things.
Absolutely. Because the first Hermetic principle is all is mind, which means it all starts here in our thoughts. But the point of a lot of the practices that I teach and the lineage is actually so that we learn that our mind is a tool, not that our mind controls us. So how do we use our will and our heart to thus enroll the mind. It is by will alone that I set my mind in motion, is one of the things we say. And so, and part of one of our rituals. So how do we, train our will such that we're setting our mind in motion and thus controlling our thoughts and intentionally creating thoughts so that like attracts like, so that our thoughts are the best possible thoughts that are out there creating our reality and the reality of others. As we've learned over the past, I hope, as we've learned over the past couple of years with everything that's come from the COVID-19 pandemic, is that, when you have fear and anxiety ruling the day, like that creates a lot more fear and anxiety. So we have to really manage ourselves to attract abundance and gratitude thoughts into our life, so that we're creating light and we're creating space and clarity and space for love, so that we can again continue to move forward to create a better world, not a world filled with fear.
Oh, that's so powerful. Any mantras that you would suggest just to wrap up, and so that the heart and the will can be the guide for the mind?
Well, it's not a mantra so much as a suggestion to just think on this or observe. We're like how as the ancient Egyptians said, that our heart is smarter than our mind, and our heart is our true space. And as light workers in the world, if people that we want to, anyone can be a light worker if you want to bring more light into your life that is working light. So how do you drop into your heart versus being in monkey mind, right? And how is our heart being open to love and light and joy and purpose and passion and all those positive emotions, so that we can be really open-hearted towards ourselves and others? And just that would be my thought to, especially if people want to work on attracting more things into their life that are positive. But we have to learn how to quiet the monkey mind and be open to our true mind, which is our heart and our intuition and our higher self. So that observation thereof. But if you do want to try something that does really work for harnessing like a good chi energy, my Buddhist practice mantra of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, which is devotion to the law of cause and effect through sound, we're all lotus flowers growing in a swamp, which the lotus flower is this beautiful flower, but without the muck of the swamp, it couldn't exist, right? So that's all of our lives. Our lives are, we have all of that opportunity of the swamp, but to be the lotus flower is to really harness, turn our poison into medicine, just recognize so much opportunity is there. But that doesn't happen through monkey mind. That happens through heart mind. And chanting that can do that, but also just observing your mind, giving yourself the space to meditate, and just being open to feeling more through the heart versus thinking our way into all the places that our mind will take us if let to go of its own accord.
And it takes a while. I mean, neuroplasticity is teaching us so much about just the science of sending new signals to the part of the brain and allowing your mind to readjust. And over the course of my practice, which is, like you said, daily, I've noticed that there's a rewiring going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a practice. And, some days the monkey mind wins. Like I've just, one of my more recent podcasts is a talk about me working myself into a tizzy and then being like, wait a minute, I teach people tools to not get to this point. Like, let me roll it back, use my own tools and practice, and get myself back in alignment. It's like attracts like. So if you work yourself in it, even the best of us who have been practicing this for years can find ourselves in a not so happy place. And, but there's methods and means to bring ourselves back. And even my lowest point is still way higher than my lowest point before I ever started these practices.
That is so true. Absolutely. So Angel, maybe you could share a little bit more about your practice, your podcast, and how people can find you.
Absolutely. So my practice is twofold. I've got the law practice, Latterell law, and then my I can help with that, which is my spiritual guide practice. I have two separate websites, both bridged with my podcast that sits in between. So you can find my podcast from both of my websites. But my if you go to latterelllaw.com, I'll spell that Latterell. law.com, you'll find my law practice. And if you click on podcast, there you'll be taken to my podcast website, and that's Laws of Abundance, Legal Advice from an Angel. And that is where I spend quite a bit of time talking about both the Hermetic principles. This season, I'm actually trying to go through examples from my life of living the Hermetic principles out and taking those, what are somewhat esoteric and maybe hard to even wrap your head around what it actually is, and bringing it into a real life example of how it played out in my life. And that's the play on words of the legal advice from an angel, is that, you know, I'm also using examples both from my law practice as well as just the world around me to bring these esoteric spiritual principles into a practical application in our lives. And I'm hoping to expand into some interviews and things this year as well with folks as I learn the technology of recording equipment and all that good stuff. But having a podcast is pretty fun. So, but I've got about almost 20, 25 episodes. So there's plenty of short tidbit, about 10 to 12 minutes max, good little listens that people can do there. And if you are interested as far as my law practice is concerned, I do primarily estate planning and business planning. It's all proactive planning so that we can build foundations for our businesses that are strong and will create the abundance as an entrepreneur that you want, as well as estate planning, which is for everybody, from an 18-year-old to a 65-year-old or more, but planning and creating trusts and wills and all of the other documents that are around there to establish protection for not only our assets, but for our families. So when the worst possible case scenario happens to us, our wishes are in writing, and it's a very neat, clean, and easy process for those that we leave behind, or if we're incapacitated, for them to figure out what our wishes are and what we would like them to do. So all about peace of mind, and also, you know, really life planning for families, so that we can create abundance for the next generation and ourselves while we're alive. So.
That is wonderful. And I know, I'll just bring up one last example that I recall from when I spoke to you in one of my last podcasts, is that you take a very unique approach, even helping people legally. So, like there was someone who had some conflict with their neighbor, and you suggested that they manage that relationship through more peace. Can you share that one last example?
Yeah, my approach, even when I was doing more conflict resolution law, like landlord-tenant, is what I did previous to estate planning exclusively. And I always did what I would call an abundance mindset win-win approach to negotiating in any situation, because actually one of the Hermetic principles is the rule of rhythm. So if you push on something, it will only swing back and smack you harder, right? Just like a pendulum, right? So when looking at relationships with people, especially if you're in a situation of conflict, what is the best way to manage the energy to get the best result? And I think it's in judo where there's a move where you actually, if somebody's going to punch you, you are able to lean in, and actually it throws them off and thus dissipates the tension of the scenario. So frequently when I'm counseling clients, especially if there are conflict situations, I was like, let's take a step back and look at the energy of the situation. Like, how are we going to be able to diffuse the energy versus taking in a kind of the standard approach is to be very adversarial, which frequently is like adding gasoline to a fire, as opposed to diffusing and finding a win-win scenario. So I always come out of the gate, even when I'm negotiating with other attorneys now too, to be like, I'm looking for a win-win. How do we work together to get the best, the best possible outcome for both of our clients? And sometimes we have to recognize like their relationship obviously has deteriorated. Here are the causes I see for that, but how do we find a place to move forward so we can put this in its best footing, so it's not a lose-lose for everybody. And it's a very different approach, and most of the time people find it refreshing and we can get to a good outcome. Not all the time, but we do our best. And so in the more transactional side of law, which I do now, I'm still looking at it from energy as well, because we need containers in which to create and hold the things we manifest. So how do we use the law to create those containers for us? And and similarly on my spiritual practice, that is the extension of that is how for your own personal life do you look at your life as a container of the things you want to manifest and bringing about intentionally the life you want to live.
I just love the fact that you've combined the spiritual mindfulness with what is often more of a cerebral, less heart-centered field, but you've combined those two. That's just lovely.
Yeah, I do my best, and it's a practice every day in that world too.
I can imagine, yeah. And it also requires a light soul like yourself to truly make this happen. So I see that beautiful energy on your face every time I talk to you, and I'm just grateful that there's a light worker in this world like you.
Thank you, Shilpa. Appreciate that.
Well, I mean it. Well, thank you so much, and I so appreciate you being on this particular podcast. We will chat soon. Have a great day.
Great to see you today, Shilpa. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.
Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And continue to be omnipresent.